Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel. Normally I try to be a little bit more put together when I do intros for the videos, but I decided to be truthful this time because yes, I could film the intro on a different day and just put it in here, but I wanted to be truthful. And today is September 1st and I am starting sort of a reading vlog. It's more like an experiment to see what happens. Sorry for the kids screaming outside. But lately I've had this feeling, I don't know why or what has spiked this, but I just have this desire to go on Libby, scroll through the available audiobooks, and just like pick up one that I've never heard of before. And of course, being me, I'm like, okay, how do I take that and make it into a video? How do I make it into content? And I decided it would be really fun to have Libby control all of the audiobooks that I read for an entire month. So for the entire month of September, Libby is choosing the audiobooks that I read. So normally I usually have one audiobook going along with whatever I'm physically reading, and sometimes that's the same book and I just go back and forth between physical and audio, but most of the time I just have a separate audiobook, and then that way when I'm not physically reading, I can listen to my audiobook on my commute, when I'm working out, and sometimes when I'm doing chores at home, like the dishes or the laundry or whatever, kind of mindless stuff, I like to be listening to an audiobook. So I would say I probably listen to 1 or 2 per week, probably closer to 1 audiobook per week, but that will be another fun element of this challenge, is seeing exactly how many audiobooks I just casually listen to during the month. So I want to start off by saying what we're doing, what some of my goals are, and what I currently have on my Libby app. So currently, today I started The Good Girl by Mary Kubica, I think is how you say her name, and I am 30% of the way through the audiobook right now. That is the only thing that I have checked out. So what my goals are, what kind of the plan is, it says I have 11 holds placed. 1 is for my boyfriend, so I have 10 holds placed for me. If any of those holds come through during the time that I'm filming this video, I have to pick them up right then. I cannot hit deliver later. I don't know if that will happen. But then I also have some kind of genre goals. So normally the audiobooks I seek out are like thriller audiobooks, because I found that personally I really like to listen to thrillers on audio. Mainly because they're really fast paced and I feel like it just flows really well when you're listening to an audiobook. But for some reason, I don't know, it's just one of those things that popped into my head. I'm like, I want to find a romance audiobook. And that is not something that I ever really seek. I don't want to say I've never listened to romance on audio, because I'm sure there's been 1 or 2, but it's not something that I like seek out or I'm really looking for. But I just think that will be fun. And then I also want to find a horror audiobook to listen to this month. And then my other goal is I want to have at least 1 book that I've never heard of before prior to filming this video. So my goal is to just kind of scroll through what's available. I have 3 library cards linked up to my Libby. Some are better than others. I just want to scroll through, see what's available throughout the month. If any holds come in, then I will pick them up right away. But that's kind of the idea. So I don't really know like how much I'm really going to be talking about these books. It's not going to be like a normal reading vlog in which I'm updating multiple times per book, because then this would be way too long, but I will at least try to give reviews for the books that I'm reading. So I think that's about everything that I wanted to say to kind of preface the video. So I will check in with you guys again whenever I finish my current audiobook, which is The Good Girl, like I mentioned, and then we'll go from there, see if I get any holds in or if it's time to pick a new read. I don't really know what's gonna happen. We're just gonna kind of go with the flow this month. So I'm very excited to see where this experiment kind of idea takes me, and I hope you guys are happy to come along for the ride with me. It is September 3rd and I have finished The Good Girl, and I will give you my review for that in a second. But yesterday one of my holds did come in, so of course I borrowed it, which means my next audiobook read will be Her Many Faces by Nicci Cloke. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a pretty new release and I've heard a lot of things about it and it sounds pretty interesting. So we already have the next read determined. Now let me tell you about The Good Girl. To be honest, it was really pretty lame. It just was like very mediocre because basically the plot is this woman was kidnapped by somebody, and so we have a past and present timeline of like before, like when she was still missing, and then after when she's back. So from the very beginning, like you kind of know what happens, like you know who did it, where this girl was the whole time. The only really like mystery component is like she has come back and now she is referring to herself as Chloe rather than her name, which is Mia, and she kind of has some amnesia around the incident. So you're kind of wondering like why this memory loss has happened and why she's calling herself Chloe, but you know like who did the kidnapping and like what happened. So I don't know, it just like was kind of weird, and it's more focused on like what everybody went through during this time, what she went through, and obviously like a big focus of it is like the kind of Stockholm syndrome that she experienced and the relationship and like the closeness that she got to have with her kidnapper. But then we're also reading from her mom's perspective and like what her mother was going through during that time, and her dad is kind of an asshole, and you're just kind of like getting all these perspectives. And then you have the detective as well, as he is trying to solve the case. And I don't know, I just didn't really think it was that interesting because, like I said, from the very beginning, like you know what happens, you know how the story's gonna end because you know that she goes home and she's fine. It's just more so focused on, I guess, what actually happened. But I had a few issues with the book as well because it did seem to be like subtly racist, which is crazy. As I was like listening to it, I was like, well, I think that's just like this character has these weird views. But then it like kept happening, and then the character that was like having these views was like the good guy. So I'm like, that just doesn't sound right, because like I don't know, there's obviously like a difference between when something like that is brought up in a book, whether it's actually the author's opinions or the character's opinions. And I could see if it was a character we weren't supposed to like and he was saying some really kind of crazy stuff, like literally like there was a moment where okay, let's just go into spoilers. Let's go into spoilers a little bit. It's the detective, and there's a moment where he's like investigating the case, and he like goes to this neighborhood and he's like, oh, most of the population of this neighborhood is white, so it's probably really safe to walk around at night. I was like, what the heck? And then of course the bad guy of the story is a black man, which for some reason is like, there's this whole paragraph at the end where Mia's like, he was a black man, he was like a killer whale, he was a predator. And I was like, wait, what's happening? Like, what is happening? And I don't know, it was things that it wasn't like outright racist, but like it definitely was. And then the other thing too was that it was very like kind of pro-life. So we come to find that like Mia was impregnated by her captor, and you know, she finds out about the pregnancy once she gets home, and her mom is like really wanting her to keep the baby, and the dad is really advocating for her to get an abortion, which on both sides, of course, it's wrong, because like at the end of the day it should be Mia's choice and what she decides to do, because she is like a grown woman. It's not like she's like a 12-year-old that got kidnapped. Like, she's a grown woman. She was living in her own apartment and everything when this happened, so she should be able to make that decision for herself, right? So I don't think either of them saying like one thing or the other was correct. But then it was also very much like the dad throughout the story is an asshole, and he's supposed to be a character that you hate. And so it just kind of seemed weird that he was the one that was like advocating for like an abortion, or for like Mia to like have her own choice in the story, because there is like a reference to like him being pro-choice in there, versus the mom who we're supposed to like empathize and like feel sympathy for, because we're getting her perspective through all of this, and she's like very pro-life, and she's like, it's so wrong, like he wants to kill her baby, like even though it's just literally like nothing, you know what I mean, that early in the pregnancy. And so that was weird, and it was giving very pro-life vibes. And then, like I said, the whole subtle racism, not to mention that the main character who's gone missing is this like pretty white blonde hair blue eye girl, and of course the entire world is gonna stop to find her. I don't know, there were some things that were weird, and then I just didn't really, like I said, feel that interested in the story, because there's not really like a central mystery or like anything kind of carrying the story along, because you know what happens. But then there is a little bit of a twist, but this is another pet peeve of mine in a thriller book, especially one, like I feel like if you pick up a thriller, you're expecting there to be some sort of twist or reveal at some point. This is one of those books where you get nothing until the epilogue, and I can't stand that. Like that, maybe that's just like me, that's like a personal thing. I think there are other people that relate to this, but like if the book cannot stand on its own without the epilogue, like what is even the point? So there is a little bit of a twist, but you don't get that twist or that reveal until the epilogue. And to me, like it's pointless. Like why even have it in there if it's just gonna be the epilogue, this character telling us like, oh, by the way, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, oh, and that time I did this. I'm like, what is the point of that? Because if I'm reading a thriller, like, I want to be thrilled, I want to be entertained, I want to be guessing along, I want to have subtlety and, like, hints throughout the book of, like, something to come. I don't want to just, like, go through this story and be like, okay, what was the point of that? And then at the end to be like, oh, by the way, you thought this was happening, but actually it's this, and now the book's over. Like, what? I don't know. I think I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I don't know. At first I was thinking like 3 stars or like 2.5 stars, because I was like, it's not like objectively bad. And then I got to like the very, very end, and I was like, actually it is kind of just bad. So, but we're gonna hit manage, you can't even see that, return early because 2 people are waiting, and then hit the flowers, which is always just fun. I don't know if that actually does anything. I saw somebody one time say that like when you hit the flowers it means that somebody can get the loan quicker, but I don't think that is really a thing. I don't see how that would make sense. Anyways, audiobook number 1 done. And now I'm going to start Her Many Faces. Not right now, but that will be the next one. And I will update you guys later with that. So I just got home from work. I got ready. I'm getting ready to go on my little walk, but I need to pick a new audiobook for my walk because I ended up finishing Her Many Faces this morning before work. I already returned the loan to the library, so you won't get to see the cute little flowers this time, but I am giving this one 3 stars. I initially picked it up because the synopsis sounded interesting to me, and it sounded similar to 2 other books that I've read and enjoyed. The first one being Notes on an Execution, and then The Quiet Tenant, which both are very similar. Like, in both of those books, you have a man that has committed a certain crime, and the story is told through the perspectives of women in the lives of these men, and like that's how you get to form a picture of like the type of person that they are, and the different ways that they are with different people, and just kind of view their overall character. So this one is pretty similar, except we have a woman that is on trial for murder, and the story is told from the perspective of 5 different men that are related to her somehow or involved in her life. So I thought the premise was really interesting, but this one is a little bit different from those 2 in the fact that there's also a central mystery within that, because she is accused of murdering like a group of men, but she is on trial for it. She maintains that she is innocent. And so that was kind of interesting because in the other two books that I mentioned, like, you know that that man has committed the crimes. In this one, there's kind of a little bit of a mystery around it, whether or not she actually did it. And so that's kind of was a fun element of the story because you get to see from the different people that you're reading from, the ones that think that she's guilty and the ones that might think that she's innocent, and why they think that, and what, I don't know, what evidence they have, and the perception that they have of her in the way that they know her. This one just didn't fully work for me because I found myself getting bored throughout the story a little bit, and I honestly debated DNFing it between like the 50 and 60% mark, but I was like, I'm already this far in, I might as well just like wait it out and see what happens. And I think like my enjoyment went up a little bit more towards the end as we're getting more kind of reveals and information, and you know, we eventually get to find out whether or not she did commit these murders. But I don't know, it just kind of lost me a little bit. And there was also a few moments where like I had trouble remembering who we were reading from, and I had to keep picking up my phone and like looking at whose chapter we were in, and then having to think and remind myself that's this person, because I don't know, I was just like getting a little bit lost in the sauce at one point, which I think definitely might just be a flaw of my own, not necessarily something to do with the book. I think there were some interesting components of this. I think it goes a lot deeper than you might think as we learn more about like the murder case, the victims, the people that were killed, and what they were involved in, and the type of people that they were. And then you also get to know Catherine, the central woman who is on trial for this, and you get to know her and why she might have done this or why she might not have done it. I do think it was interesting. It just didn't fully work for me. Anyways, while I was reading that one, actually yesterday, one of my other holds came in, Overgrowth by Mira Grant, which I did borrow according to the rules of the challenge. But this one is 17 hours, and I don't know, I just don't feel like starting it right now. It's not due for almost 3 weeks, so I have time. I will definitely be getting to that one in this video, but I just want to, like, the whole reason I started this video was because I want to just scroll through Libby and see what's available and pick something I've never heard of, and I haven't gotten to do that yet. I know we're only 2 books in, but I'm like, I want to do this. So that's what we're gonna do. I don't know if I mentioned before, but I have 3 different library cards connected to my Libby account. So I am going to switch over to the one that's actually in Minnesota, like the local library system that I use here. And I am just going to search available now, audiobooks, and call me crazy, I want a romance. So I'm going to search for a romance. And I also, this is probably not a good idea, but like, I do want to pick something that I've never heard of before, which I don't know if I should do because romance is not my top genre, so I don't know how that's gonna go. So let's just browse what they have available. The first one that pops up is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which is really funny because that is, when I think of romance books that are like actively on my TBR, that is one of them. And maybe I should read it because then we're like sort of in summer still. Oh, Quicksilver's available. $57 hours. What could you possibly have to say in a romance book for 57 hours? Birding with Benefits. I kind of feel like I've seen this cover before or heard it, but I don't think so. Okay, you know what? We're gonna do it. I'm gonna read Birding with Benefits by Sarah T. Dubb. That is the only one that sounds like slightly interesting to me, so we are borrowing. There she is. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Welcome back. It is now September 13th. I have finished Birding with Benefits. I finished that yesterday, so I think I'm gonna land on, I don't know, 3.5 stars or 3 stars. I thought it was enjoyable. Okay, actually maybe we'll go with 3 stars because I do have a few like little nitpicky things, but before we get into that, let me tell you what the book is about. So the book starts off with the 2 main characters meeting through sort of a miscommunication. So the female main character, she is set up with this guy by a friend, and she believes that he needs like a fake girlfriend in order to like show off to his ex, and he is actually seeking a partner for a birding competition. So she has no birding experience at all, but the 2 of them end up in this like fake dating partnership kind of by accident, and then they end up partnering for the birding competition, which is a 6-week long competition. There's a bunch of different teams competing, and their goal is to identify like the most birds out of any of the teams within the 6 weeks. So she, like I said, does not know anything about birding, and he is kind of an expert, so he is kind of showing her how it's done and teaching her, and she is just going along with it, and they are in this like fake dating scheme. I think a lot of parts of this were really, really fun. I loved the birding elements and seeing like the passion. I can't remember their names. I think his name was John, and I can't remember what the female main character's name was, but seeing the passion that he had for this, and the expertise that he had, and then also the element of him having to like teach her, and she knows absolutely nothing about this, and then seeing her get more passionate about it and more involved in it was really, really fun. I loved like the birding excursions that they went on and how detailed those were. I just feel like those had that fun, silly, rom-com-y feel that I was looking for when I went into this book, and kind of how it's advertised. But then it becomes, you know, they're fake dating, but they decide to become like friends with benefits as well. And then it takes like a really big focus on the physical aspect of it. And of course I expected there to be some smutty sex scenes, but I feel like the sex scenes in here were very, very like long and drawn out, and my eyes were kind of glazing over, and I was really zoning out during those parts of the audiobook. I don't know, it just like wasn't holding my attention through those parts. Another thing that I wasn't a really big fan of in this book was like the characters. I thought that the characters were interesting, but they're both like middle-aged. Like our female main character is in her 40s, and she has a daughter that is like getting ready to go off to college, but they felt very, very young for me. Like some of the situations that they were getting into, the conversations that they were having, the reactions that she had to certain things just felt very, very young. It felt like this couple was in their 20s, and so it was very jarring every time I was reminded that she had a daughter that was like graduating high school. I was like, this girl's not old enough for that. And then I was like, oh wait, she is. Also, once the book kind of takes a turn and becomes more focused on their physical relationship, I feel like then you start to get away from like the fun, lightheartedness of the birding competition, and there's not enough of that in the second half of the book. And I think that's definitely a personal preference, but I wanted to see more of that because I thought it was really, really enjoyable to follow. I like having an actual plot to focus on aside from the romance, and I liked following their journey as they were starting the competition and like spotting all the birds and seeing the numbers increase each time. And I feel like towards the end of the book it just kind of like we were jumping ahead so far, and then we were at the end of the competition, and I was like, what happened to like, you know, between A and B? Like, how did we get here? What was everything like in between? And I just wish there were more birding moments. So 3 stars for that one. I did start the next book, Overgrowth by Mira Grant, today. I'm only 8% in so far, but I'm really, really loving the setup and the premise of it. This one is longer. I think it's like 17.5 hours. So even though I listen at 2 times speed, it's still going to take me a little bit longer to get through this one. So I will come back to you guys with an update once that one is finished. Hello. It is now September 19th. I just got back from my workout. That's why like I kind of look like this. Which, side note, today was leg day, and I will be honest, I've been slacking a little bit getting back into like my workout routine, so I haven't done a full leg day since before I moved, and I feel like I'm dying right now, and I didn't even do like all of the things that I would normally do in a leg day, but I finished Overgrowth during my workout. So what I want to do is pick my next book now, because I'm going to take a shower and then I'll probably make food and do some dishes a little bit, and then I'm also planning to like do my nails tonight because all of these are blank and then just my thumbs. So I want to find a nice little audiobook to listen to. So first of all, let's go ahead and return. Hello, you can't see that. Let's do our flowers. Yay for flowers. Anyway, should I give you my review of Overgrowth? Probably. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It started off really, really strong. I thought it was so interesting. We start off with this little girl who is 3 years old, and she wanders off and it goes into the forest, and while she is in the forest, she starts to smell something that like essentially smells like everything good she's ever had, like candy and sweets and stuff, being a 3-year-old. And she ends up following the scent to this plant that then devours her and spits her back out, and she wanders back out of the forest to her parents, who are like frantically searching for her, and she's like, "What up, bitches?" And they're like, "Oh my god, where have you been?" She's like, "I don't know, I was just chilling in the forest. By the way, I'm an alien and my species is gonna invade you guys, so, you know." And people just think like she had a traumatic experience in the forest, and she kind of created this whole like alien thing as a way to like cope with the trauma, and she maybe has some like repressed memories. So obviously they don't really think anything of it, but then this persists as she gets older. She keeps like insisting that she's an alien and that her species is gonna come invade Earth, and nobody really takes her very seriously. And so we are following her in her adult life. Obviously, we know as the reader that that's true, that she is an alien, and her species is coming to invade, and they are a alien species of plants. And it started off, like I said, really, really strong, and I really, really loved it. I've never read anything from Seanan McGuire, but I've read two other books under the name of Mira Grant, which was Into the Drowning Deep and then Rolling in the Deep, and I really, really enjoyed both of those. So I was excited for this one because I like the way that she writes horror and creatures, but this was kind of a letdown. First of all, it is over 500 pages physically and like 17 and a half hours via audiobook, and that, in my opinion, was absolutely way too long because a lot of it felt really repetitive, and it kind of felt like she was like spoon feeding us stuff and really trying to like hammer across certain points. And it's like, okay, I get it. Like, I don't need you to tell me the same thing like 3 or 4 or 5 different times for me to understand it. I don't need you to repeat it again a couple sentences down, word it a little bit differently. And there were a few points where I was like, yes, I understand. We just read that. Why am I reading this again? Why am I hearing the same thing again? And then it also did kind of lose me towards, I would say, like the last quarter of the book, because it just, like I said, it just felt way too long. It really felt like everything was very dragged out, especially with how repetitive some of the writing was. So it started off strong. I was really, really invested in it with like the first 10 to 20%, and then after that it just kind of leveled out and became okay, and then it just kind of fizzled out by the end, and there were points where I was like, I don't really care about what's happening, and that was a very unfortunate feeling. So I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Would I still recommend it? probably, like, if you've enjoyed this author, you are a horror reader and you like kind of horror sci-fi, you like the idea of it being like this alien invasion. Also, if you want something that is character focused and focused on friendships and relationships as well, because that is a big focus, and kind of conversation about humanity and what it takes to become a human, because obviously, like, our main character has been living in a human disguise and has been learning about humanity and culture and traditions and forming relationships with other humans, and all of that comes into play towards the end as she is kind of faced with the decision of, like, embracing humanity and everything that she has learned through disguising herself as a human, or embracing her roots as, like, her own species comes back to find her and she starts to understand more about the species. One thing, of course, that I will say about Mira Grant, Shauna McGuire, like I said, I haven't really read any Shauna McGuire books, but I've read some of the horror under Mira Grant, and she is really, really good at diversity among her characters. We have a character in here that is trans, and so there's a lot of conversation about that. So for all of those reasons, I would recommend it if that sounds like something that is interesting to you. I just feel like this didn't need to be that long. Anyway, I just saw the other day that Libby posted this on Instagram. I'll pop it up on the screen. It says, "Inspire me. Wondering what to read next? Try our new Libby app feature, Inspire Me. Simply answer a few prompts and get a list of book suggestions available free from your library." So it says type #InspireMe in the Libby app search bar, and then you get to choose, like, what kind of book you're looking for. So I'm gonna try that out. I know that I want a thriller. I'm just in the mood to listen to a thriller right now after that, like, long-winded horror book. But speaking of, I did complete a horror book, so I have now checked off everything that I set out to at the beginning of the video. Okay, so I typed in #InspireMe. This is where it took me. I want a fiction book for adults that is, ooh, wait, this is fun. Scandalous. Okay, wait. Amusing, ancient, definitely don't want ancient. Breezy, cosmic, cozy. Oh, wait, what do I choose? Let's do scandalous. Ew, this feature uses generative AI. I should have known. We all know how I feel about AI, but I'm gonna try this. Is that all that it's gonna use? I thought I would get to pick, like, a couple of different options. I didn't think it was just gonna go with scandalous. Political wives unraveling scandalous secrets. Forbidden affairs in royal courts. Psychological thrillers about suburban housewives. Artists obsessed with dangerous muses. Family sagas hiding generational crimes. Women breaking silence about workplace predators. I want to say psychological thrillers about suburban housewives, but I feel like that's going to be kind of boring. But let's just see what it recommends me. Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. No. Big Little Lies. Okay, this is one that I know is very, very popular and has been popular for a long time because it's been out for a long time. And I do kind of have it on my radar because I feel like it's one that I should read at some point. So we will keep that in mind, but I think that's longer and I don't want another long one. The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I have that on my physical TBR, so I feel like and I paid full price for it, so I feel like I should read it physically instead of listening to it on an audiobook. A Good Marriage by Kimberly McCreight. Same thing. This one I didn't pay full price for. I thrifted it, but I still feel like I should physically read it. You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce. I have never heard of this. A twisted psychological thriller that delves into suburban secrets, manipulation, and the blurred lines between perception and reality in a domestic setting. Let me see more about this. Okay, so this is about a reclusive and eccentric best-selling novelist who disappears. She dies, but there is no body, just her massive fortune and one final manuscript. She also has a husband who mysteriously died, and her father and brother died in a shocking murder-suicide. So, let me look this up on Goodreads and see what other people are saying about it. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one. I have seen a few reviews from my friends on Goodreads. I didn't see anything lower than a 3-star. I saw people describe it as being dark and magical, something about a fairy tale element, and then also that it kind of delves into childhood trauma, which I feel like are all things that could work for me. So I'm gonna go with this. It's also pretty short. It says approximately 7 hours, and I feel like that's perfect. So we are borrowing You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce, which is a second title that I've never heard of, so that is kind of fun. So I'm gonna go shower and then get out and start my audiobook, get some things done, and I will see you guys once I finish this one. Hello. It is now September 24th. I finished the book a couple days ago. I just haven't done an update to pick another book, but that was You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce. I don't know what I want to rate this one yet. I enjoyed it, but it was also entirely different than what I expected. I feel like based off of the synopsis and then based off of like what Libby said as I was choosing the book and like how it described the book, it was a little bit different. The story is about a woman, like I mentioned, an author who has gone missing, is thought to be dead, and we are reading, I think it's her niece and her nephew, like go to her home and they find this manuscript there and they are reading it, and she is like exposing the truth of everything that happened because her husband was killed and she was accused of the murder, and then there was also a murder-suicide with her father and her brother, and she is now finally speaking her truth of everything that happened. But there are a lot of other elements that come into play because she went through some trauma as a child and at one point was seeing a therapist, and this therapist ended up writing like a book about her and about her case and about a trauma-induced psychosis that involved her. I don't really know like the best way to explain this. So we're reading her story and her perception of the events and what she believes to be the truth and what she thinks happened to her since she was a kid and led up to the death of her husband. And it's kind of like up to the reader and the other characters in the book whether they want to believe her version of events or whether they want to believe like something else. It's really difficult to explain because I feel like I don't know how much to say that won't give away what the book is, but then I also like, I don't know, because I feel like the synopsis needs a little bit more to it, but then I also don't know, like, I don't want to add too much. It was just entirely different than I expected. I did enjoy the writing, and I will say, like, it definitely had me captivated and it held my interest throughout. Like, especially towards the beginning, I was roped into it pretty quickly, especially because we're reading it, like, it's the manuscript of this woman. So she is telling us her experience in her own words, and that just made it like really easy to get invested and want to keep reading, especially because it's short, it's very fast paced. I liked the way that it looked at mental health and childhood trauma, but it also, I feel like, just left a little bit too much open. As you can tell, this is a hard one for me to explain my feelings with. I would read again from this author and see what she has to put out there, but I just don't know how I feel about this one. I'm thinking maybe either 3 or 3.5 stars because I just really can't make up my mind about how I feel. Anyways, we are nearing the end of the month. I'm thinking I could probably do one more audiobook. I just don't know what I'm in the mood for, Part of me wants to do a nonfiction because I'm behind on my nonfiction goal. My goal from the beginning of the year was to read 2 nonfiction a month so that at the end of the year I would have 24 nonfiction books completed, and I was keeping pretty well on track with that until I moved, and then my reading has changed a little bit since that big move. So I do have a tag on Libby for all of like the nonfiction books that I would be interested in, but I also have a bunch of thriller books tagged, so I don't really know what to choose. I'm gonna scroll through my nonfiction tag and see if there's anything that catches my eye. The one thing that is standing out to me on this is The House of My Mother by Shari Franke. It doesn't say it's available now, but it says available soon. So like, should I put a hold on it and then maybe it'll come available tomorrow? What do I do? Okay, you know what? I'm gonna place a hold on that just because I want to get to it anyways, but it probably won't be included in this video. So I'm gonna go through my thriller tag and see what I'm interested in there. Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and pick Confessions. This one's a relatively short one as well, and I've seen a lot of good things about this over the years since it's come out. It says it has twists that you will never see coming, probes the limits of punishment, despair, and tragic love, culminating in a harrowing confrontation between teacher and student that will place the occupants of an entire school in danger. You'll never look at the classroom the same way again. So I'm just gonna get that one because it's short and is really the only one that has me sort of interested right now. I don't know why I'm in like a weird mood right now. Okay, so the next read will be Confessions. This might be the last one for this video. Actually, it probably will be the last one for this video, so I will see you guys with an update once I finish that one. Hello everyone, it is September 26th now. I ended up finishing Confessions this morning. This one like flew by, and I know it's an audiobook, but like I feel like it went by so quickly. I guess it just wasn't that long, but I ended up really enjoying it. I think it's probably around a 4-star for me. I was a little bit apprehensive when I first started the book. So we start off basically with like a monologue from this woman. She is a teacher in Japan, and we come to learn that her young daughter died in what was ruled an accidental drowning at the school, but she knows that 2 of her students are responsible for it, and she is kind of on this revenge mission. So like I said, the book opens up and she is kind of monologuing, talking to her students. She's like, I'm retiring. One of the students asks, is it because of what happened? And she's like, well, yeah, kind of. And then she goes in this whole big story telling about what happened to her daughter, who was responsible for her daughter, how that came to be, and how she's on kind of a revenge plan a little bit. Like, just loads and loads and loads of backstory and information. And that's why I was apprehensive of it at first, because like I said, it was very monologue-y, very like info dumpy, and there were definitely points where I was like, okay, what is going on? Like, who are these people? What is the story we are being told? And I was a little bit lost, but it was also a super intriguing story that like sucks you in. And even though I was like, what is going on? Why am I getting all this information? I still was like, I can't look away because I'm so interested to see where this is going to go and like what is going to happen at the end of this story. So once she gets through with everything that she is talking about, we go to the next chapter, which is from a different person's perspective, and then they are basically telling us their story. And that is how the book is laid out, is each chapter is a different person's perspective, and each of those people obviously is telling us the story as it relates to the death of this young girl. So even though it took me a while to get used to the way that the story was being told, I ended up really enjoying it, because I feel like it kind of plays into the idea of like, there are 3 sides to every story, right? There's person A's perspective, there's person B's perspective, and then there is the truth. So it was really interesting to see like all of the different people that are related to this one incident and how all of their perceptions are a little bit different based off of like obviously the role that they played. And it's really fascinating too, because with each of the chapters from these different perspectives, like everybody's adding a little bit something to the story that you didn't previously know. And I feel like that kind of signifies the title, like Confessions, because everybody is kind of confessing in a way when it comes to their chapters. And I think that's really, really interesting. Like, it's kind of just this puzzle, like all of the pieces to the puzzle are coming together the further that you get into the book. And I definitely love stories that are told that way, the way like things slowly unfold, just like this one, and how everything pieces together and you don't get all of the information up front because you have all these other people that are coming in and giving you little bits of information. It also gets pretty dark at some points, but I really, really loved like everything that happened in this book. I feel like it also had this big ending. It was definitely building up to a big ending, and I feel like the ending was satisfying for the story that it was. And I don't know, I feel like it's one that is going to stick with me for a while. Just the characters, the stories that they told, is just so fascinating, and I definitely would not hesitate to recommend this. I feel like it might even be 4.5 stars for me now that I am talking about it and thinking about it a little bit. But I would say if you are looking for something that is twisty, compelling, unique, a little bit dark, and has that idea of like multiple people coming together to tell this story in its entirety, I think you could really enjoy this. So I also did get my hold in for The House of My Mother by Shari Franke. It came in the next day as I expected. I started that one today. I am 15% of the way through that one now. I also had another hold come in for Ask for Andrea, which I went ahead and borrowed, but I don't think like it'll make it into this video because I think The House of My Mother will be my last read for this month as far as like audiobooks go. So I'm gonna work on finishing that, and then I will see you guys very shortly. Hello, it is September 30th. You can see my October TBR in the background, ready to go. I just finished the last book for this video, which was The House of My Mother by Shari Franke. I've already returned it to the library, so we don't get to see the flowers this time. I do apologize. This is a book that I'm not going to be rating because it is a memoir. Like, it's a story of Shari's life and her telling her truth and her experiences, and I just feel like why, I don't know, giving a rating to that just seems odd because like what do you go off of when you're rating a book like this? You know what I mean? However, I did really enjoy it. Of course, it's an extremely sad and heartbreaking situation. For those of you that may not know, Shari Franke is the daughter of Ruby Franke, who was the mother of a family with 6 kids, and they had a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. They were a family vlogging channel, and then things escalated and she ended up getting arrested for child abuse. So obviously a very, very heartbreaking story. There's been so many documentaries about it, but I think that it was really written well. Like, I see people make the argument that like, oh well, this just doesn't add anything more to like what we already know. But I feel like that's kind of an insensitive thing to say because like this is her real life experience that she had, and so what if the story she's telling is the same story that every other documentary is telling? Like, this is in her words, and the book is narrated by her, which was really, really nice. So I didn't pick it up expecting more juicy details. Like, I just wanted to hear her story told through her words, and I feel like she did add a little bit more because we get to see really what her life was like when she was at college and she wasn't living in that home every day, and some of the other experiences that she went through in her life. And I think it was really great of her to come out and to write this book because it really is like one of the first actual first-hand accounts of a child that was in a situation like this where they were used for content and put on the internet from a very young age, and just the horrible consequences that come with that. So I really appreciate, you know, the fact that she decided to write this book and decided to tell her story. I think it's a very important thing to be addressed, just children on social media, family vlogging channels, and I would definitely recommend this to, even if you don't know anything about the 8 passengers situation, if you are someone that feels strongly about things like that and against children being on social media and against this whole vlogging thing and children being for content, I would recommend this because I feel like it's a very informative read. Like I said, one of the first, if not the first, like first-hand accounts of this happening and of the perspective of a child that went through this. So in conclusion, I'm just going to do a little bit of a wrap up here. I read 7 books for this video, which came out to 34 hours and 10 minutes of audiobooks listened to, and that number is adjusted according to the speed that I listen to. Of the 7 books, I had 4 thriller books, 1 horror book, 1 nonfiction, and 1 romance. I read 2 books that I had not previously heard of, and I checked off all of my goals that I had from the beginning. As far as ratings, we didn't do the best. The highest rated book that I had was Confessions, which I gave it 4.5 stars. Then Birding with Benefits, I gave 3.5 stars. And then my 3 3-star books were Her Many Faces, Overgrowth, and You Let Me In. And then the worst book was The Good Girl by Mary Kubica, which I gave 2 stars. And then The House of My Mother, which I'm not rating, so that doesn't really fall in the lineup. So I think this was a really fun experiment, just a fun thing to do. I would definitely do it again. However, I don't think I would use the Inspire Me feature on Libby again because it does use generative AI, and that is not something that I support. I don't think that it should be anywhere near the creative spaces, which also includes the book community, so a little bit unfortunate on that front. I think it's a cool idea, but also you can seek out actual professionals to get that same sort of recommendation service. You can contact a librarian. There are plenty of paid services online where you can get recommendations. You can go on booktube, on bookstagram, DM a friend, DM me if you want like a personal recommendation, okay? You don't need to use generative AI in order to get a book recommendation like this. That is enough rambling from me though, so I'm going to wrap up this video. With all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.